As the outrage over the death of George Floyd at the knee of a Minneapolis police officer continues, with the toppling of statues and calls to defund police departments, murders and shootings in major cities across America are skyrocketing. In New York, they saw a 79% increase in murders in the month of May. In Philadelphia, a chilling statistic: 70 children have been killed by gun violence since the first of the year, 68 of them black children. And in Chicago, 90 murders reported last month. If that trend continues, there'll be close to 1,000 murders by the end of the year. But behind all those statistics are faces and names, hopes and dreams that are now gone, families that will never be the same. That's why it's important that we see those faces and know those names, because maybe then someone will care. Lena Nunez was at her grandmother's apartment last Saturday when a bullet tore through the window and into her head. The 10-year-old was pronounced dead hours later at a local hospital. It happened in the Logan Square section of Chicago. Not one of the worst neighborhoods in Chicago, but certainly not one of the best either. The week before, on Father's Day, 3-year-old Mekhi James got his first barbershop haircut. He was excited to get home to show his mother, but someone shot at the car his stepfather was driving. It hurts. It hurts. Mekhi cried out because of the bullet now in his back. He died a few hours later. It happened in the neighborhood of Austin, the most crime-ridden neighborhood in Chicago. This is life in Chicago. On Father's Day weekend in Chicago, 104 people were shot. 15 of them died, including Mekhi and 13-year-old Amaria Jones, who was just sitting in her living room when she was hit by a stray bullet. Last weekend, 63 people were shot in Chicago. 16 of them died, including Lena and 20-month-old Sincere Gaston, who was in his car seat when a bullet struck and killed him. Unfortunately, this is nothing new in Chicago. I was a TV reporter there back in 1992, and I remember starting a live report with this line: "A little boy should feel safe in his own bedroom." It was the story of a 7-year-old black child who was struck in the head and killed by a stray bullet as he slept in his bed. If you don't know the names of Lena Nunez, Mekhi James, Amaria Jones, or Sincere Gaston, it's because the national media has not told their stories. Now, the local TV stations in Chicago have done a wonderful job with extensive coverage of their stories. But since the networks own most of the TV stations in Chicago, they have no excuse. Now, when George Floyd was killed, the networks were all over that story, as they should have been. Wall-to-wall coverage for weeks. That sparked the outrage and the calls for change that reverberate to this day. After the 2018 shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, that killed 17 people, there was extended national coverage with calls for a change in gun policy and a change in school security. It also included prime-time town halls and live coverage of national rallies. But over the last 10 years, there have been far more people, even more children, killed by gun violence in our cities than all of the school shootings and police shootings put together during that same time period. So why isn't there a national effort driven by the media to make changes that could save lives of children, teenagers, and adults in our cities? It is a false narrative that families, that people in crime-ridden neighborhoods aren't doing enough to call attention to the problem. They march, they rally, they hold vigils, they just aren't covered beyond city limits. At a rally in Chicago last week, after a weekend where 5 black children were killed, there was a march and many toddlers holding signs that read, "My life matters." Now, it's often said that the violent crime that's an epidemic in minority neighborhoods is a complicated problem that doesn't have one solution. But Jamal Cole, who has organized many of the Chicago rallies against violence, came up with one. Cole told the crowd, if you want to reduce violence in your neighborhood, you just have to show up. He went on to say that those who don't show up and ask, how can I help, are part of the problem. The national media, the networks, they need to show up because they're part of the problem. I'm Larry Mendte. Talk again soon.